Hey guys, this is your molecular physiology introduction for Foundations of Medicine. The first thing I'm going to talk about are the molecules that we will reference a lot in this class. There's 3 molecules that we're going to talk about a lot as we go through the semester. We're going to talk about how they relate to one another, and then we're going to close up with some talk about genetics. So our 3 favorite molecules that we will talk about a lot are DNA, RNA, and protein. DNA is basically the blueprint for everything in our cells, and I think you guys know this already. So we have the DNA, and then the RNA acts as a translator to translate the DNA into protein. And the protein is that final product that we have in our cells, and everything the cells do depend on the proteins at work in the cells. So we're going to talk about these 3 molecules a lot. Let's discuss their size and structure and how big they are compared to one another. So it always helps me to think about the size of things in relation to one another. Nucleic acids are really small. They're about 0.2 nanometers. And DNA and RNA are both made up of nucleic acids. For the DNA, we have the double strand, and the RNA, we have single strand. The DNA has, like I said, the 2 strands of nucleic acids, and these are joined together by hydrogen bonds. And as we always see DNA in this double helix, it's basically that ladder of nucleic acids twisted. So you get that double helix. The RNA is single-stranded and is essentially just a copy of one of the strands of DNA. Then we have proteins, which are made up of amino acids, which are about 4 times larger than the nucleic acids. When proteins are made, they are basically strings of amino acids, and then those amino acids fold up to create a 3D structure. That 3D structure is the protein, and it has multiple functions in the cell. Different proteins do different things to allow our cells to do what they need to do, depending on which cell type they are. So to give you guys a little bit of a look of what these, just a second, of the size of everything, go to this website called scaleoftheuniverse.com. It's a really cool way to look at the relative size of everything. So all the way from here we have a human, and you can zoom in, and we can zoom all the way into, say, a single skin cell. And then we can see that inside the skin cell you have something even smaller, the nucleus. And as we zoom in even further, inside that nucleus is the DNA. So we can see how big that is. So that's just a cool website if you guys want to explore it. Now let's talk about the relationships between these molecules. So as I said before, DNA is the blueprint of everything in the cell. And in order for us to get protein from the DNA, first it's transcribed into RNA, and then that RNA is translated into protein. So earlier we said that DNA and RNA are both nucleic acids, and protein is made of amino acids. That's why when we go from RNA to protein, we need translation, because they're essentially 2 different languages, from nucleic acids to amino acids. And one of the key concepts that we'll need to remember in this unit is that gene expression controls the protein expression. Now we already kind of talked about this because we said that DNA is the blueprint of the proteins in our cells. Well, this is really, really important because our DNA, as you can see in the picture, is divided into single genes. So you have in this picture gene 1, 2, and 3. Each gene gets transcribed and then translated to make a single protein. So for gene 1, it codes for protein 1. Gene 2 codes for protein 2, and so on. So the key here is that if gene 1 is expressed, then we get protein 1. To make it a little bit more complex, not all of these genes are being expressed all the time. As you can see here, I have each gene in a different color, and some of these genes are off, and some of them are turned on. In different cells, different genes need to be turned on in order to make that cell what it is. Different proteins allow for different types of cells. So when the genes are turned on, that means they get transcribed into RNA, which is then translated into protein. If they're off, we do not get the protein for that cell. So, all of our cells have the same DNA. All of our cells have the same 3.2 billion base pairs of DNA. That's 3 meters long. The question is, how can our heart cells be different from our brain cells, and so on, if all of our cells, both of these cells, have the same DNA? What makes them different? And the key here is to think about it in terms of which genes are expressed in those cells.